This is the president of Ivory Coast, the man who is providing base for Langley.
Between 1958 and 1961, France did something absolutely horrible.
How can you have a country and your currency is being printed outside? You say you are a sovereign nation. No.
What's up, beautiful and amazing souls? If you clicked on this video, let me take this opportunity to say a very big thank you. Thank you so much for your support. I mean, when I talk about the support, it's watching the video, subscribing, commenting, sharing, you know. So when you actually come here, it's all about unite Africa, unite, nothing else, African unity. And also we are going to analyze speeches from several people, or what other people are talking about African leadership, African politics, you know. And now you know it's Ibrahim Traorè.
Alassane Ouattara, the president of Ivory Coast. Listen me very carefully. If you are going to let American use your air bases or military forces to try kill Ibrahim Traorè or destroy Burkina Faso or destroy Mali or destroy Niger, I am telling you straight, you will face us. And we will point you as Africa's enemy. This is direct warning to you.
Have you ever wondered why France has been so much involved in Africa, especially in the Sahel region? Former French President Jacques Chirac once said, France would become a third world country without Africa. Now, it seems to be happening as France and French corporations are facing massive losses after they have been kicked out from Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali. Recently, it has been revealed that Air France has faced a collective loss of 65 million euros because it was kicked out of the Sahel region. The loss has been so painful that Air France wants to return to the Sahel region. However, Ibrahim Traorè from Burkina Faso and other military leaders in Mali and Niger will never let that happen. So what desperate actions France is making for an immediate return to Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger, and what losses it is facing? In this video, let's know about that. For decades, France relied on Africa as its economic backbone, extracting wealth while maintaining geopolitical leverage over the continent. However, after revolutionary military leaders come to power in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, things have changed entirely. They brought a watershed moment for France, a major shock that has rattled France and French companies. The expulsion of French troops, corporations, and political influence from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso has shattered France's economic stranglehold over the region. Nowhere is this decline more visible than in the financial devastation faced by Air France, which has lost over 65 million euros since being forced out of the Sahel. For Air France, the Sahel was more than just another destination. It was a highly profitable monopoly. The airline generated staggering daily revenues, 500 million CFA francs from Mali, 430 million from Niger, and 390 million from Burkina Faso, adding up to over 2 million euros per day. This level of profit was a reflection of just how deeply France depended on the Sahel for economic survival. And we are only talking about one of the hundreds of companies. But with the rise of military-led governments in these nations and their firm rejection of French dominance, Air France was pushed out, cutting off one of its most lucrative revenue streams. The result has been a financial catastrophe, leaving the airline scrambling to regain access to the region. However, the new governments have made it clear that the era of France's unchecked exploitation is over. The revolutionary leaders of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger represent a new era of African governance, one that prioritizes sovereignty over submission. These leaders have taken bold steps to dismantle France's economic and military grip on their countries. That's because they know the reason France has leverage is because of the financial benefits it gets from Africa. If these are stopped, France will no longer have the financial backing that gives it international support. You should know that France has long maintained an image of economic strength and industrial power, but much of its success was built on resources it did not actually possess. Despite having little to no significant reserves of gold, uranium, and critical minerals, France remained a major exporter of these commodities for decades. These resources were not French, they were African. France extracted them from its former colonies, rebranded them as its own, and profited while African nations remained underdeveloped. One of the biggest examples of this exploitation was gold. France has no major gold mines, yet it exported vast quantities of the precious metal. The source has always been West African nations like Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, where French companies controlled mining operations under unfair contracts. These deals ensured that African countries received only a small fraction of the wealth generated, while the gold was refined in France and sold as a French commodity. On this, Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni openly exposed France on live TV. Now, with Sahel nations reclaiming their resources and kicking out French companies, France's so-called gold exports have all but disappeared, revealing how dependent it was on African wealth. The same pattern applies to uranium, coltan, cobalt, and lithium, essential minerals for modern technology, electric vehicles, and batteries. France does not have significant reserves of these minerals, yet it remains an important player in the high-tech industry. But that is changing. Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali's rejection of French influence is not just about political autonomy, but also about dismantling the structural economic dependence that kept Africa subservient to France. This movement gained momentum through a series of military coups that fundamentally altered the power dynamics in the Sahel. The overthrow of pro-French regimes was not merely about local politics, but an outright rejection of France's neo-colonial dominance. Paris reacted with fury, attempting to impose sanctions, severing diplomatic ties, and seeking to isolate the new governments. Yet these actions only accelerated France's downfall in the region. Instead of bowing to external pressure, the new leadership expelled French troops, shut down French embassies, and nationalized key industries that were once controlled by French corporations. Among the most symbolic and financially devastating blows was the removal of Air France, cutting off a major economic artery for France. For decades, Air France was more than just an airline. It was a strategic economic weapon, ensuring France's continued control over African air travel. The airline dictated flight routes, monopolized key connections, and extracted wealth from the region while reinvesting little into local economies. Air France maintained a near-total monopoly on flights between the Sahel and Europe, keeping fares artificially high while providing subpar services compared to other international carriers. This system funneled enormous sums of money out of Africa and into French corporate coffers, reinforcing France's economic grip on the region. However, when the revolutionary government seized power, they began to question why Air France was allowed to operate so freely while contributing so little to African nations. When the airline abruptly suspended flights in response to political changes, the Sahel nations responded by banning Air France from returning and exploring alternative partnerships. Mali's Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop openly criticized the airline's arrogance and exploitative business practices, exposing how it routinely canceled flights without accountability, stranding African passengers in Europe and elsewhere. He pointed out that such reckless behavior would never be tolerated in the US or other Western nations, yet Air France felt it could do as it pleased in Africa. That era, he stated, is over. If Air France wants to return, it will stand in line like any other company, without privilege, without special treatment. France is no longer in control. Africa is.
Burkina Faso was formerly colonized by France and has an abundance of gold in natural resources. Traorè pushed out Western influence, including the mine owners, who are French mine owners in Burkina Faso. France wanted to reestablish relations with Burkina Faso, and if you've seen Macron giving a pretty ridiculous speech trying to say one day they'll thank us for helping them, no, they just wanted you to leave them alone. Anyway, Traorè said that in order to reestablish relations with France, that France is going to have to return all of the gold that they have stolen from Burkina Faso's mines, and all of this gold that they have is sitting in reserves in France. France is trying to say that that gold is theirs. It comes from mines in France. There are no gold mines in France. So now the US is getting involved. And we can all guess what those claims are going to be. Now we're seeing the claim, oh, he's stealing all the gold for himself and he's not helping his people. The next they're going to be like, we need to bring democracy to Burkina Faso, like those typical things that the US says in order to manufacture consent for invasion and ultimately backing a coup, which I'm sure they have already tried, them, France, and anybody else who benefits from the gold exploitation of African nations, which includes those fake Muslim countries like the UAE. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying that. But there's a reason why a lot of these nations are not coming to the aid of Palestinians and are also thriving off of the exploitation of natural resources from nations in Africa. Anyway, I'm hoping this gets picked up by American TikTok, but we'll see. And as we go along, you're probably going to hear a lot of comparisons of Thomas Sankara to Ibrahim Traorè. Sankara was a leader almost exactly like Traoré around 1970s in Burkina Faso. I have one of his speeches pinned on my profile. I'm going to make a part 2 sharing what I know about Sankara because I understand this is 2 minutes and that might be a little bit too long for people's attention span.
This is the president of Ivory Coast, the man who is providing base for Langley. This man is providing base for Langley to prepare his strategy on how to attack Burkina Faso and destroy Ibrahim Traorè. This is what we have been saying. Africa must get rid of leaders like this. Africa must get rid of leaders like this. I have a message for all young Africans. Let us get rid of leaders like this. This is a leader that you do not want next to you. He is a snitch. He is who we call snitches. He is a snitch. And I've got a message for people that are trying to attack Ivory Coast and Africa at large. Whoever tries to touch any country in Africa is touching the whole Africa. You can come and touch Zambia, the whole Africa will come and stand for Zambia. You can touch Kenya, the whole Africa will protect Kenya. You can touch Nigeria, the whole Africa will come and protect Nigeria. You can touch South Africa, the whole African continent will come and protect South Africa. Come and touch Egypt, Algeria, Morocco. People in Africa are going to rise to protect the continent. What you're doing, those are the kicks of a dying animal. Those are the kicks of a dying horse. All these old leaders, we should get rid of them.
Life is difficult, but you must soldier on. Don't give up. If you are a coward, you don't belong here. But if you fight, even when things are difficult, you keep on fighting. This is your home. Welcome to the home of black people who never give up, who keep on soldiering on. Even when it is difficult, we keep on soldiering on. One day we shall arrive because we know we have a future, and that future is what we make of it now. No one is going to destroy us because we have an appointment with that future, a very important appointment with the future, and you are not going to stop me into making it into that appointment with the future.
Ibrahim Traorè led a coup against the government that was subservient to its foreign masters. You know, there's been many coups across the continent, but usually those just replaced one neo-colonial agent with another, usually. But Ibrahim Traorè is different. He's not just changing the government. He is uprooting the whole system of neo-colonial domination, and he's succeeding. He's understood what many people have failed to grasp, which is that independence is meaningless if you don't sever the control of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. He's understood that security is a myth as long as it depends on the military patronage of your former colonizers. And he's understood that sovereignty is impossible under the shadow of Western tutelage. He's not merely a head of state. Ibrahim Traorè is the revolutionary archetype of the 21st century. He was forged in the reality of Western-backed insurgency and Western economic warfare and propaganda. Because, you know, today the fight for freedom is not just waged by armies anymore, but by narratives, and by resource policies, and by alliances, and by collective sovereignty. Traoré has made the choice to look towards Russia and Turkey, and towards other new centers of power in the multipolar world. That's strategic. Not because they're perfect allies, but because he recognizes the necessity of breaking the Western stranglehold on Burkina Faso. This is pragmatism in service to principle. This again is the methodology of middle nation. It's engagement without submission, cooperation without subjugation. It's trade-offs without selling out. He also understands, crucially, that Africa's liberation cannot be rented from outside. It has to be rooted in the reclamation of Africa's own wealth. You know, His moves to exert control over Burkina Faso's gold, building indigenous defense capacity and food sovereignty, these aren't just political decisions. These are acts of civilizational self-respect. It's a declaration that Africa's children will no longer be bled dry for the enrichment of Western imperial capital. We see Ibrahim Traorè as a brother, not simply because of his faith, but also because of his fight. Because he embodies the spirit of the Quranic guidance to stand firmly for justice, even if it is against your own selves, even if it is against those who are in power, and even if it is against the odds. Burkina Faso isn't just a battleground today for the Burkinabe people. It's the front line in a global struggle for liberation. What Ibrahim Traorè is doing is echoing in the Sahel, in Niger, in Mali, across Africa, across the Ummah, across the global south, and across the world. Every oppressed people around the world can now look to Burkina Faso and to Ibrahim Traorè and say liberation looks like it's actually possible. But obviously, the global order trembles at the prospect that anyone is going to follow his example. They're afraid of his courage and his clarity and his defiance in the face of Western power and Western threats, and they should be afraid of that. They should tremble because they know the jig is up. But we know that when they get scared, they get dangerous, and Ibrahim Traorè is under severe threat. There's already been something like 20 attempts on his life since coming to power. They just stopped a coup from happening last week, organized by the Americans and by the French, right there in the French embassy. Because a free Africa is just something that old wolf can't take. You know, they've been keeping Africa in the past for so long that they know that if they let Africa get away from them, then they're going to be the ones who are consigned to history. The chains that have been holding Africa down all this time are also the only things holding the West up. So now America has said that they want to arrest him. You know, they've already tried to take him out more than once, like I said. Now they're trying to smear him. They're trying to attack him. They sent the head of AFRICOM to the Ivory Coast a couple of days ago, which is a neighbor of Burkina Faso and which is known to have allegedly anyway participated in the killing of Thomas Sankara. Allegedly, they participated in the coups or helped to organize the coups against coup attempts against Ibrahim Traorè. And the Western sycophantic leader that was overthrown by Ibrahim Traorè is in exile in the Ivory Coast right now. So they're getting ready for something. Understand, Ibrahim Traorè isn't just fighting insurgents and militants in the desert. No, every time he has to meet with some Western diplomat or politician or ambassador, he's fighting that same enemy. They're just wearing a suit and tie. And meeting in some conference room or some embassy somewhere. But it's the same enemy that he's fighting in the desert. He doesn't have a meeting with any Western official except it's a kind of combat. Imagine. The same ones that are smiling at you or from across the table, those are the same ones who are also paying mercenaries to kill you. Listen, this is important. Burkina Faso is important. Ibrahim Traorè is important for everyone, not just for Africans, not just for the Burkinabes. This isn't about idolizing the man. It's about understanding the importance of what he represents. And what he represents is a paradigmatic shift that the whole world needs. You understand me? Those CGFC have been on a path of power consolidation for decades, accumulating more and more power in fewer and fewer hands, and leaving almost nothing beyond their control. We are in a struggle against this consolidation. Do you understand? It's a struggle for decentralization. That's the essence of it. That's what multipolarity is. It's decentralization. We need to pursue, protect, and preserve variance.
How can you have a country and your currency is being printed outside? You say you are a sovereign nation. No, the church must speak. Look at what that young man has done. He's in his 30s. The man they are calling a dictator. Look at the development he has brought to that country. He has built 2 gold refinery. Before they carry all the gold out, he's providing employment. He's building factories, building roads, apartments, buildings, developing the nation. But you say what? He's a dictator. How? In 2.5 years, what that guy has done, you can't deceive us again. They take hold of your media and they paint Africa black. They paint us black. They say we are not. What Africa needs is not politicians. We need real leaders who care for the nation. And unfortunately, they are able to confuse us because there are some greedy folks, little ones. They look for them and they give them money and they ask them to bring confusion. And that's what is happening. Our borders confusion all so they can exploit us. But the time has come and the church must awake and pray against some of these things and speak also. We should be able to speak truth to power. This is a truth. This is truth that is bitter in their mouth, and we need to speak it. Those big denominations, they should speak.
In the country of the upright man is a dream country. To President Traorè, the reincarnation of Thomas Sankara President Traorè who has led the struggle to complete the unfinished business that was started by our ancestors and our Pan-African leaders in 1963 when they created the Organization of African Unity. During that meeting, they demanded the creation of an Africa that spoke with one voice, an Africa that was united. That journey is yet to be finished. What is happening in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger, is just the beginning of a revolution that is way past due for Africa. Africa must unite, and Burkina Faso has showed us the way. They have opened the doors. They have shown us that the bully can be defeated. That no more shall we continue to give up our land. That we too need it. And therefore, there is no negotiating with the bully. The bully had to go, and Burkina Faso showed us how to do it. So, Mr. President, I bring you your children, descendants of the formerly enslaved. They have waited over 400 years to return the spirits of their ancestors back home to Africa. When the children of Africa were taken out of Africa as slaves, all they ever wanted to do was to come back home to Africa. Each and every one of them that you see, many of them are coming to Africa for the first time. They are bringing with them the spirits of their ancestors to put them to rest here in Burkina Faso. And that's mission number one. Mission number two, we have watched you, Mr. President. You stand for everything that we have hoped for in an African man. Courageous, fearless, and in their faces. France, unapologetically, you told France, pack your bags and go home. You, Mr. President, and the people of Burkina Faso have done it, and we have a responsibility to support you. You have over 300 million African diaspora who are looking up to you. We are here to show you that we are with you. We support you. We are behind you, and we will not let you down. What can we do, Mr. President, to play our part in building the Burkina Faso we want?
Between 1958 and 1961, France did something absolutely horrible. France made the Francophone African countries, and I don't even want to use that terminology, but I only use it for the purposes of conversation. The 14 countries which were formerly, but still colonized by the French, they were forced to sign a document that they called the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. You heard me. The Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. If you want your independence, you must sign this. Guinea, Secretary said absolutely not. Mali said absolutely not. France, pack your bags and go on back home. France could not believe it. Could not understand that an African country, these monkeys, do not want to be affiliated to France. They said, we will show you. So history tells us France went into those two countries, took everything that they thought they had brought to those two countries, including the last teaspoon and chair, proceeded to pour concrete into the sewage pipes, completely devastating the two economies. The then newly appointed president of Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah, in his efforts to rescue these two economies, created the first ever union of any African states, Ghana, Guinea, and Mali. But what that did was it made the other African countries realize that if they go against France, this was the fate that was waiting them. So what did they do? Wait the paper. And they signed. What did the pact say? One. The pact said, you monkeys, you don't know how to manage your money. So you shall deposit 85% of your bank reserves with the French Central Bank under the control of the French Minister of Finance. And that France is going to take your deposits from the individual countries, pool them together, invest them in the French stock market under the French name. And you, monkeys, you may or may not know the returns. Latest figures are showing this is still going on since 1958. France today is collecting out of Africa over $500 billion before investing. And when they finish investing this money, for every 14 billion out of Africa, they're recognizing over 300 billion. Now do the math. So when it's actually said and done, France is taking out of Africa trillions of dollars every year, and we, the poor Africans, are gladly giving it to France. And the same France has the audacity to look at us and call us poor people. 1958. They went further with the pact. You say, we will also print your own money. We will print your money for you. They instituted what they were calling the CFA, special currency for the African countries, and that only France can print that money for you. They went on to say all the contracts, large contracts, public and private, French companies have the first right of refusal. All your minerals discovered, yet to be discovered, France has the first right of refusal. Now, my brothers and sisters, if one of you was to wake up one morning and you're president of one of those countries, and your chief of staff walks in first day and starts reading you out the do's and don'ts as stipulated by the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, what power do you have? None. And the same countries that are stealing from Africa, they have the audacity to look at Africa and say, Africans, what's wrong with you? Why can't you all take care of yourselves? Well, let's start by living on $500 billion on the continent. But what they do instead, they want to throw you with a smoke screen. Your African leaders are corrupt. Well, you know, I gave you that. I mean, not all African leaders are corrupt. Africa is a family. No family is complete without crazy Aunt Sally and crazy Uncle Tom. Nobody's perfect. Okay, fine, so I'll give you that. Their own figures are saying 50 billion is getting out of Africa from corruption. Fine, I give you that. But you do not want me to engage in a conversation that's solely limited to the $50 billion out of Africa through corruption. First, you don't tell me where it's going. You simply tell me it's getting out of Africa. But secondly, there's a bigger thief. You got two thieves, one with a briefcase with 50 billion and the other thief with a briefcase with 500 billion. I am a smart woman. You want me to ignore the one with 500 billion and put all my energies on a suitcase with 50? And by the time the one with 500 billion is done investing, we are talking trillions. Now, do you see how quickly the funds out of Africa from corruption become the larger chunk under the table? And they want you to stay under the table. So you never have to talk about what is on the table. We must wake up, Africans. We must think about our situations. How did we get here? Are we willing to let France go?
Anyway, my good people, first and foremost, I want us to discuss about this particular guy that came out and talked about, Africans all over the world. How, most of us have come out and we are like, for Ibrahim Traorè. I mean, so many videos are surfacing online and people are just supporting Ibrahim Traorè from the north to the south, from the west to the west, from the west to the east. That's what is happening across the world, not only Africa, across the world. Even in UK, we saw people coming out and they were like, we are supporting Ibrahim Traorè because, he's the guy that wants to see an independent Africa a better Africa, you know. And of course, you have other leaders like Julius Malema, Arikana, Chiombori, you know, the likes of, I mean, guys, even today, like just some few hours ago, Tanzanians are joining Ibrahim Traorè. And you know what? They're getting rid of the dollar, pounds, euro, because remember, those major foreign currencies here in Africa, euros, dollars, and the pounds, the rest are just, they're not that serious. Now, when I talk about these currencies, is that there are those currencies that even when you go to the bank, you can transact with them. Tanzanians are saying to hell. Anyway, guys, up to this point, I know all of us at this given point, you're like, Ibrahim Traorè is this guy that has united everybody in the world. I mean, is the unifying factor in Africa at the moment. You know, when you just sit down in any place, you'll just hear a discussion of Ibrahim Traorè. I mean, and there's a guy that came out and talked to the president of Ivory Coast. And that is not even talking, he warned him, the president of Ivory Coast. This is because this guy has allowed the West to set up an airbase in their country. And this country borders Burkina Faso. So of course, to most of us, we feel like he's trying to set up this particular lovable, this particular patriot of Africa, Ibrahim Traorè. That is what most of us think, and that is why so many people have come out to condemn, you know, the president of Ivory Coast. They have come out to actually call him out and tell him that, hey man, you are a traitor, you are a traitor. How comes? Why do you want to sell out Ibrahim Traorè? Why do you want him to be killed? Actually, did you know that France lost around 65 billion euros just by them having conflict with Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso? You know, at first they thought that, you know, they were going to do well on their own. They're going to come back whenever they want. And you know what? They even took out Air France. But at the moment, they're the ones that are begging to go back and, you know, do their operations in Burkina Faso. But at first they were like, they thought that they were the superpowers. There is nothing that this guy can tell us. But this guy, Ibrahim Traorè, is actually a man and a half. And Arikana Chiombori, in one of his videos, he talked about, you know, is this guy that most African women would love to be with. Because actually, anyway, that was according to him. And Arikana Chiombori is someone that is loved also because of her support for Ibrahim Traorè. Actually, what do you think about France begging Burkina Faso to come back? And do you think that Ibrahim Traorè will allow that? I don't think so. I don't think so. Like the Sahel region will allow these people back, the colonial masters, whose work is to ensure that Africa remains poor. Remember, Ibrahim Traorè has been in power for around 2 years now, heading to 3 years, and so much has changed in Burkina Faso in terms of industrialization, in terms of gold mines. Remember, in the past, you know, the France-owned gold mines, and France-owned gold mines in Burkina Faso, so that they used the children of Burkinabes to extract this gold, take it to their own country, rebrand it, and sell it as their own. And at the end of the day, the West, the Sahel region, got a very small portion, but now their economy is doubling, others are tripling. Remember the video that I did yesterday, how Niger jumped from $1 billion economy to $300 billion economy, you know, after chasing the colonial masters away. And we are so happy. I mean, when you look at the Sahel region in general, it's all about encouragement, motivation. I mean, when you look at them, we find ourselves being like, oh my God, I can also do it. We can also do it. Just imagine if most Africans, we become like Ibrahim Traorè. Oh my God. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be, a kind of revolution that has never ever happened in this world. So, oh my God. South Africa, they are actually yearning for Julius Malema to be in that seat, the presidency. I can't imagine what Julius Malema can do, because he's also this kind of a leader who fights for his people. He fights for the people of South Africa and also Africans. He doesn't like the way these other people from the West are terrorizing, they're demeaning. They're the richest there, but when you look at, the South Africans who are born and raised there and everything, like the black ones, they're not doing so well. They don't own so many properties there. So most of the economy, or I would rather say that the European economy, it depends on African resources like 100%. And I think there is one guy that came out and said that what France is doing, they're actually heading towards, being poor. Because they depended so much on the Sahel region and they're not doing well at the moment, And who should be blamed for, Africans being poor? Who should be blamed actually? Who should be blamed that the West is exploiting Africa and African resources, Africans in general? Who should be blamed? Is it our leaders? Is it us as Africans? Who is it? Who should we blame? Is it the colonial masters? That is the big question that I always ask myself. I don't know, who do you blame at this given point? Me, I will say probably our leaders. Why will they agree to be puppets? Why not stand like Ibrahim Traorè? And you can imagine this particular president from Tanzania, oh my God, heading towards the same direction. The revolution that is coming, in the next 10 years, Africa will be something else. Our economies will be big, it will expand, will be at a better position. Okay, that's what I see. I don't know what you're seeing. Because at the end of the day, anyway, I know that, this life is all about interdependence. We depend on the West, they depend on us. But the problem is that the policies that they are, offering us, it's not there to help us, but to help them. Remember, Arikana Chiombori said that most leaders, when they go to vote, in the UN, during that time when leaders are being elected, most of the time they are actually going to vote for other people's issues, not the issues of Africa. So at the end of the day, nothing actually happens. Oh my God. Most of the West, actually, they say that Africa is poor. They call us poor. But the big question is, why can't they leave us alone if they really think that we are poor? So I think they should just leave us because we are poor. There's nothing that they're getting from us, right? Then that would make sense, Okay, Africa is poor. Why is France also begging to bring Air France back? It doesn't make sense, I know that one time, when all of us become like Ibrahim Traorè, Africa will be the greatest continent that the world has ever had. I know it's going to be like, because what Ibrahim Traorè is doing, it's actually a reincarnation of, Sankara. Sankara wanted the same thing that Ibrahim Traorè wanted. And you can imagine several years later, over 30 years later, Ibrahim Traorè is coming in and doing all these things that Sankara wanted, It's actually time that you cannot lie to anybody at this given point, because most people are learned, most people are open-minded, most people, we know what is happening at the end of the day, It's not that time of the year where when someone is doing good like Gaddafi, the West comes in and starts telling us that, this particular guy is not doing good for you. He's a dictator. Why is he doing this? Anyway, look at Libya at the moment. Before Gaddafi died and after Gaddafi died, it's not even an habitable place to foreigners, probably maybe the Libyans only, which is something that we have never ever been happy about. So to do with Ivory Coast, I really hope that they're not going to betray Burkina Faso. And I hope that the people from Ivory Coast, you're going to stand strong for Ibrahim Traorè. When you come up to the streets, just like the other day when this particular guy, Langley, talked about Ibrahim Traorè trying to initiate a propaganda that, all this gold that is extracting in the gold mines, it's actually for himself and not to benefit the people of Burkinabe. The thing is, he was trying to come up with this propaganda so that the people of Burkina Faso, it's their own president, chases him out of power. They come in, they bring, they actually tamper with the stability of the country, and then Burkina Faso becomes another Congo. Oh my God, I even feel so bad to talk about that. Anyway, Julius Malema told us that, you know what, we need to keep fighting. Even if it looks so tough, we just need to keep fighting, because one day we will get there. We don't know when, but for real, we will get there, and that we need to be strong, even if things are difficult. You know, listening to these people, I can tell you, it actually lifts our spirit. Listening to these people, it actually motivates us. It makes us feel that tomorrow is gonna be better, you know. Traorè is not only changing, you know, the economy and everything. He's not only changing the system, he's also uprooting this problem that has been there, getting rid of these colonial masters, the policies that they had put in place. You know, most African leaders, when they want power, they promise to change things. They don't actually uproot the problem, and that is what Ibrahim Traorè has done, which is commendable enough, you know. As much as people call him a dictator, and remember, calling him a dictator is from these leaders that don't support him. But at the end of the day, we don't see him as a dictator, because we are seeing the things that he has done for Burkina Faso, or the Burkinabes. I mean, in the past, Burkina Faso didn't have a gold mine. It's the France that owned it, you know. You know, it's so funny that France had the 4th largest gold mines, and they don't even have they don't own a single gold mine in France, but they were the 4th largest. At this given point, the president of Burkina Faso took everything back, and we can see what is happening in Burkina Faso. We have seen him building roads. We have seen him build apartments which are going to be given to the people of Burkina Faso for free. We have seen schools free of charge, you know, especially the university one. I mean, we are seeing industries coming up, and that is only 2 years. And what about these African presidents that have been there from 1980s? From I know you know these kind of leaders that have been in power, like, they don't want to come out of that place. When you look at their government, the son heads, you know, probably the military, the wife is the Minister of Education, the daughters are the Minister of probably this other, like, fish industrialization. Like, a single country is being controlled by one single family, which is so bad. You know, a country should be controlled by many people, so that at least people can feel, you know, the representation, the love, and they'll be free, you know, to do whatever they want. They'll be free to improve the policies and everything. But being ruled by one country is really, really tough, and it's actually taking the country back and not forward, because at the end of the day, there are no new ideas in place to change everything that should be happening in a country. Anyway, my good people, let me talk about Arikana Chiombori. Oh my God, I've just come to love this lady. I have just come to love her, because all that she's preaching about is Africa must unite, which I 100% support. Africa must unite. Anyway, Burkina Faso has shown us the way. What else do we need? What else do we need? Niger, Mali has shown us. I mean, we can see the impact, the positive impact. What else do we need? I can tell you that Ibrahim Traorè is the Moses in the Bible, or our Moses in the Bible. Remember, the Israelites, they actually suffered for like 400 years. But who saved them? Moses. And that is why I believe Ibrahim Traorè is the Moses of Africa. Thank you so much. If you watched the video up to this point, I appreciate your presence. I love you to the moon and back. Subscribe to the channel.